I'm using elastic. This one is around 1/2 centimeter wide. Take our measuring tape, we wrap it around our waist. We need 2 pattern pieces. We need to make a full circle skirt, and then we also need to have a 1/4 circle skirt calculator. You put in your waist measurement, and now I'm going to pin it on the fabric and cut it out. I want to make sure that the 2 good sides are facing each other now. Stick your fingers in there and then pull the whole skirt out. I feel like this is such a fun piece of clothing. I'm going to show you mine worn in a few seconds. Welcome back to another sewing tutorial. My name is Ann-Sophie and I'm the person behind Sewing with Solana, and today we're making a bubble skirt. I feel like this is such a cool piece of clothing. It's so cool to style, and it's not complicated to make actually. Like, it's pretty easy. Like, we need to make one sewing pattern piece, like a full circle skirt, and then we need to make a 1/4 circle skirt, which is going to be the lining, and then we're gonna sew them together. And to make the sewing pattern, we're gonna Google Mood Fabrics circle skirt calculator. Then we need to put our measurements in there, make the sewing pattern, or if you would want to, you could also trace it directly onto your fabric. Then we cut it out and then we sew it together. I'm going to show you how to do everything step by step now, and yeah, let's go. To make this bubble skirt, I'm using elastic. This one is around 1/2 centimeter wide, and it needs to be long enough to fit around your waist. Then you need a measuring tape, and I'm using this fabric here. It's 100% linen, and it has a super nice crinkled look to it, which I really like. Then you need paper scissors, fabric scissors, and some pins and needles and a seam opener in case something goes wrong. And then I'm going to draw my sewing pattern onto a brown fabric, but you could also draw it straight onto the fabric. I often think it's nice to first make sewing pattern, so if you want to make it again, you have the sewing pattern ready to go. Okay, so the first thing we need to do now is we need to take our measuring tape, we wrap it around our waist where we want the skirt to sit, and then once you have that measurement, for me that's 69 centimeters, then we can go ahead and make our sewing pattern. And to make the bubble skirt, we need 2 pattern pieces. We need to make a full circle skirt, and then we also need to have a 1/4 circle skirt, which is going to be the lining of the skirt, and this is going to be the outside of the skirt. And I always use this website. It's Mood Fabrics, then I just Google circle skirt calculator. But first we need to put our waist measurement here, and then we need to add 20 centimeters. So for me, that's 89 centimeters. And then we go to this website here, and I'm going to do mine in centimeters, a mini skirt. Then first let's do the 1/4 circle skirt, and then here you put in your waist measurement. So for me that's 89 centimeters, it's my waist plus 20 centimeters. And then we calculate it. So for me now it's important first the waist radius, so I'm going to write that down here. And then this here where it says, oh no, your skirt is not going to fit on fabric, just ignore that. And then down here it shows you how you need to fold the fabric, or how I'm going to fold my paper to make the sewing pattern for it. So just follow the instructions down here. And then we also need to do the same again, but this time for a full circle skirt. And then my waist radius is 13.85 centimeters. And then down here it shows you again how you need to fold your fabric, or how you need to fold your paper to make the sewing pattern piece. And then I'm going to make my full circle skirt 41 centimeters long, and the 1/4 circle skirt you need to make it a few centimeters shorter. I'm making mine 3 centimeters shorter, so I'm going to make it 38 centimeters long. The pattern pieces are really big, so as you can see, for the full circle skirt I had to glue paper together, and also for the 1/4 circle skirt I had to glue some paper together just because it's really big. But here's what mine looks like, and now I'm going to pin it on the fabric and cut it out. Okay, so now I have cut out the full circle skirt and the 1/4 circle skirt, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to measure that this skirt measures 41 centimeters all the way along, and this one 38 centimeters, just because for this skirt it's really important that it has the same length everywhere. Otherwise it's not going to look as nice, so I'm just going to measure everything again, see if maybe I need to cut some parts a little bit shorter, just so it's really 41 centimeters everywhere, and this one 38 centimeters. And once you have checked that and everything looks correct, then we can start sewing. The first thing we're going to do now is we're going to take our quarter circle skirt and we're going to sew it together here at the open end. And if your fabric has a good and a bad side, you want to make sure that the two good sides are facing each other now. And then we're going to pin along here, but we need to leave a gap of around anything from 5 to 10 centimeters here in the middle or a bit lower, just because that's important for later. So I'm just going to put a red pin here where I'm going to leave the gap from around here to here. So I'm going to start sewing here to the red pin, then I leave a gap, and then I finish down here. Now I'm going to press my seam open. And as you can see, here's my little gap that I left. Now we can fold our full circle skirt open. And then we take our quarter circle skirt. And now what we're going to do is we need to sew them at the waist together. This time you want to make sure that the good side of your quarter circle skirt is facing the good side of your full circle skirt. And now it doesn't really matter where you start. I'm just going to start at here, a random point. And now we're going to pin the whole waist together. And then we're going to sew in one big circle. Okay, so this is what mine looks like now. Don't be like confused or like disappointed or think you messed completely up if they don't line up perfectly, just because the waist radius that the calculation gave us were so specific. Like, it's so hard with our measuring tape and like drawing it by hand to get those numbers exactly perfect. So mine also didn't line up perfectly, so it just took me a bit of pinning around. And maybe at some points I need to overlay the fabric just a little bit like this, which is totally fine because we're going to sew in an elastic anyways and it's going to get scrunched together, so later on you won't barely see it anymore. But what we're going to do now is we're going to sew in one full circle. And now we can take our elastic and wrap it around our waist. This time I would recommend you to make the elastic a little bit more tight, especially if you use like a thin elastic like me, because it needs to hold quite a lot of fabric. So I'm gonna do it like this. I cut a piece of elastic off now. Mine is 53 centimeters long, And now you just want to sew the two ends together here. So I'm just overlapping them. Make sure that your elastic isn't twisted. So now I'm going to sew the elastic onto the seam allowance of the waist part of the skirt, and I'm just going to do it with a straight long stitch. And while you sew, you will have to stretch the elastic. And now we're going to fold the skirt apart, and what we want to do now, we want to fold, like sew the seam allowance onto the quarter circle skirt. So just make sure this here where you can see that we have sewn the quarter circle skirt together is the quarter circle skirt, and this here is the full circle skirt. So you want to make sure that you fold it towards the inside of the skirt, the quarter circle skirt. And then I'm now gonna have the good side of the skirt face me. And you also again need to stretch the elastic in here. And now what we need to do is we need to focus on the full circle skirt, and we're gonna have to do a long stitch at the end of the skirt. And either what you could do, you could make one big one, but what I would actually recommend you is to do it in 4 sections. So it needs to be set to the longest stitch length, and I'm also moving my needle to the right. So now what we're gonna do is, let me just lay the skirt like this a little bit. And now I'm just gonna start here. And here we have the quarter circle skirt. And here the full circle skirt. Right now the bad sides are facing each other, but now we're gonna pull it apart. And now we're gonna make them meet with the 2 good sides facing each other. And I'm just gonna pin it in place. So we're doing this now exactly as we would the end of the Josie top and the end of the scarf top. And now you just need to gather the fabric together, pin it onto your quarter circle skirt until it has the same length. This may take some time, and then we can go to the sewing machine and sew it all together. And then while you sew, you will have to move the fabric around a little bit. So even now it might be a bit hard pinning everything together. And then once you think you have gathered it together equally and it's all spread out equally, then you can go back to your sewing machine. Make sure you set it back to your normal settings. And then we're just gonna sew in one big circle. And then once you have finished that, then you need to find your little gap here and you need to flip it all the other way. So you just stick your fingers in there and then pull the whole skirt out till the right side is facing you. And now we need to close the gap here. So I'm just gonna fold it in like this, and then we're gonna sew from here to here. And now we are finished with our bubble skirt. I feel like this is such a fun piece of clothing. I'm going to show you mine worn in a few seconds. Let me know, like, tag me in your photos, tag me in your videos. I feel like the only bit tricky part about this is doing the last step that we did here when we sew the two skirts together at the bottom. But maybe if you're done sewing it, you can flip it and then you can see if you've gathered it equally. Otherwise, you can just go back inside again, open it up again and sew it again. But yeah, so cool. Tag me in your photos and videos. I always love seeing how your pieces turn out. And let me know in the comments what videos you want to see next. And yeah, I hope I see you next week again, because I'm trying to post sewing tutorials every single week. Goodbye.